On a cold Tuesday morning at 6:15, the sharp metallic crunch of bolt cutters snapping through a 5-pound brass padlock echoed across Cedar Lake. I stood on my cabin porch with a hot coffee mug, watching Karen Vance, president of the Pine Creek HOA, hand a yellow legal pad to a hired worker. He set the keypad code to 4920. Ran, she instructed, her voice carrying across the quiet cove. That will allow all 120 homeowners to access the lake ramp starting today. I didn't yell. After 38 years as a senior land surveyor, I learned that when an arrogant manager arrives with bolt cutters, yelling accomplishes nothing. Certified county records do. I walked down the causeway. He took a quiet sip of coffee, then looked Karen in the eye. Check page 14 of the 1998 agreement. Lurzy Karen, I said softly. Book 98, page 412. Recorded a $480,000 legal trap. And by snapping that padlock, you just sprung the trigger to understand why a 66-year-old retired surveyor didn't lose his temper when a neighbor cut his padlock. You have to understand how this shoreline was carved out of the Oregon timberland. My name is Frank Sterling. I spent 38 years working as a civil land surveyor and state forestry inspector in Clackamas County. I spent my adult life reading property lines, analyzing meets and bounds legal descriptions, verifying county recorder stamps, and resolving boundary disputes between timber companies and private landowners. When I retired at 64, I wanted quiet land where the boundaries were clean, the Douglas firs were tall, when the water belonged to nobody but the man who paid the property taxes. In the spring of 1974, long before developers carved these hills into manicured cul-de-sacs with identical craftsman homes, my father, Thomas Sterling, bought parcel 18, 45 acres encompassing the eastern ridge and deepwater shoreline of Cedar Lake. Back then, there were no paved roads, no streetlights, and no HOA handbooks. It was pure Oregon timber, Douglas fir, red cedar, and clear spring water. My father spent 3 summers clearing the access road by hand, operating a vintage Caterpillar bulldozer he bought at a county auction. He hauled 400 yards of crushed granite to build an elevated causeway connecting our timber parcel directly to the highway. At the entrance, hung a custom 22-foot iron gate forged from heavy drill pipe and oak timbers, locking it with a 5-pound brass master lock. Frank, my father told me as we tightened the hinge bolts, a man's boundary isn't built on neighborhood opinions. It's built on what's stamped into the county record book at the courthouse. As long as your deed is clean and your posts are plumb, nobody on God's green earth can step across this line without your written permission. When my father passed away 11 years ago, parcel 18 passed to me. I kept the causeway graded, the timber thinned, and my father's dark green 1978 Ford F-250 parked neatly near the boathouse. While in 1998, Crestview Heights developers bought 300 adjacent acres to build Pine Creek Estates, a luxury subdivision featuring 120 high-end homes. The developer needed secondary emergency fire access across our causeway to get his plat approved. My father granted an emergency license for fire trucks only, but insisted on a protective covenant in the recorded declaration. Recorded in Book 98, page 412. The covenant stipulated that if the HOA ever claimed ownership or impaired private access over parcel 18, 3 automatic legal triggers occurred. While secondary fire access was revoked, a $480,000 developer indemnity bond was triggered for cash clawback against HOA reserve funds, and their communal dock faced municipal condemnation. For 25 years, that agreement sat undisturbed in my fireproof box. Then Karen Vance moved into Lot 1. He became HOA Board President unopposed and turned the newsletter into a strict compliance bulletin. Pine Creek Estates had a shallow, muddy communal dock, while my private causeway opened into deep water with a concrete boat launch my father and I had poured in 1982. In June, Karen issued Rule 8C, declaring private gates near boundaries an obstruction, imposing a $500 daily fine and authorizing physical removal. When Rule 8C arrived in my mailbox, I didn't yell. My years in land surveying taught me that if an argument is not filed on paper, it does not exist. I pulled my 1974 deed and 1998 master covenant from my fireproof box, placing them on my desk next to my daily logbook. But what Karen didn't know was that her first certified letter contained a fatal legal flaw on the second Monday in October. A formal certified letter arrived from law firm Sterling, Cross Associates, signed by Harold Blake. It claimed Parcel 18 was subject to an implied prescriptive easement, demanding gate removal within 48 hours, $2,500 in fines, and boathouse keys. I sat at my desk and wrote a 2-page response citing Book 74, page 118, when Book 98, page 412, attaching certified survey photocopies showing tax parcel 18's meets and bounds coordinates. I warned that parcel 18 was independent, and interference would constitute criminal trespass and breach of the 1998 Municipal Indemnity Agreement. My family, 2 days later, the return receipt arrived signed by Karen. Instead of checking records, while Karen escalated, she hired a local property maintenance firm, ordered an electronic keypad lock, and scheduled installation for 6:15 Tuesday morning. Which brings us back to Tuesday morning, with bolt cutters snapping my 5-pound brass padlock. I walked slowly down the gravel driveway, taking calm steps in my leather boots, to where Karen stood with a worker holding bolt cutters. Morning. Homeowner, Karen, I said. Mind telling me why you're cutting steel on private land? Ranch, Karen turned. Arthur, under Rule 8C, water access corridors adjoining community boundaries are shared infrastructure. The board voted to integrate this gate. The code is 4920. Karen, I said, as I have explained before, this causeway is part of Parcel 18, 45 acres of private land recorded in 1974. Pine Creek Estates doesn't own it. You signed the 1998 agreement. Arthur. Karen insisted. The council confirmed Section 12 granted a water easement. Check page 14. Karen, I said. Book 98. Page 412. Recorded a $480,000 legal trap. And by snapping that padlock, you sprung the trigger. With Karen, I warned. Your Section 164.345 defines criminal mischief as intentionally damaging property. You instructed a contractor to destroy my lock. Lot Jim, while check your insurance, because if any resident uses that lock, your company will be sued for trespass. Jim looked at the broken padlock and stepped back toward his van. Vance, Jim said, if this is private land, we can't be involved in a boundary dispute. Jim, well, get in your van. Ran at me, Karen demanded. You were hired under a valid work order. Jim climbed into his van and drove away, leaving Karen alone by my gate. Why Karen dialed sheriff dispatch, reporting an aggressive landowner. Ironically, 20 minutes later, Deputy Miller, a seasoned officer in his late 40s, He arrived in his white and green patrol cruiser. "Good morning, Frank," Deputy Miller said. "What's the situation?" Deputy, while Karen interjected, "He's blocking water access and threatened our crew." I handed Deputy Miller a neat manila folder I brought from the cabin. Deputy Miller read the certified land records on his patrol car hood. "Ma'am," Deputy Miller said, "we enforce state statutes. This deed places the causeway inside tax parcel 18, owned by Frank Sterling. You cut a lock on private land. If Mr. Sterling files a report, I'll take it. Your remedy is through the civil courts, ma'am, until a judge signs an order. Unauthorized entry is criminal trespass," Deputy Miller stated. After Deputy Miller left, I unbolted the keypad lock while handed it to Karen and told her never to return. For Karen took the keypad, her face pale. "You think you've won, Frank," she whispered. "We have a $50,000 legal budget. Every day this causeway remains closed, a $500 fine will accrue. In 90 days, we will place a lien on parcel 18. "Lee, Karen," I replied. Book 98, page 412, stipulates that if the HOA claims parcel 18, 3 legal triggers occur. Fire access is revoked. The $480,000 indemnity bond is triggered for cash clawback, and your dock is condemned. Karen dropped her legal pad and marched up the road. Within 48 hours, the process server handed me a lien notice claiming parcel 18 owed $12,400 in fines. But as I opened my master case file, I prepared to invoke ORS 94670, giving me the power to audit every financial record the HOA was hiding. On Tuesday morning at 8:30, I put on my dark gray wool suit, picked up my steel fireproof box, and drove my green 1978 Ford F-250 to the Clackamas County Courthouse in Oregon City. The county recorder's office sits on the second floor of the historic brick building, overlooking the Willamette River. I spent 38 years of my public works career in that building pulling utility permits and land surveys, and the registry staff knew me well. Behind the public records counter was Senior Clerk Helen Vance, no relation to Karen. "Good morning, Frank." "Ran," Helen said, while smiling warmly. "What brings you down from Cedar Lake today?" "Good morning, blonde Helen," I said, placing my 1974 warranty deed on the counter. "I need certified, gold-embossed vault copies of 3 specific files. Tax parcel 18 warranty deed, the 1998 Pine Creek Estates Master Declaration, and the 1998 Municipal Indemnity Bond Agreement." Helen typed the parcel numbers into her terminal, printed the microfiche index, and walked back into the secured document vault. 20 minutes later, which she returned with a thick stack of certified, well-stamped legal documents. I sat at a large wooden reading table under the bright fluorescent lights and conducted a page-by-page audit. What I uncovered in those certified county records was clear. 1974 Deed Book 74, page 118. Parcel 18 and its causeway were granted as an unencumbered fee simple estate with 0 HOA covenants or access restrictions. 1998 Master Declaration Book 98, page 412. Page 14 contained the explicit exclusionary addendum exempting Parcel 18 from all HOA rules, architectural control, and vehicle restrictions. 1998 Municipal Indemnity Bond 98-08412. Crestview Heights developers had deposited a $480,000 irrevocable letter of credit with Clackamas County. Well, Section 6 explicitly stated that any attempt by the future HOA to encumber Parcel 18 would trigger an immediate $480,000 cash forfeiture payable by the HOA Reserve Fund to the county treasury. Then I asked Helen one more crucial question. Well, Helen, can you check the recorded amendment registry for Pine Creek Estates? I want to see when Rule 8C was recorded. While Helen typed on her keyboard, scrolled through the screen, and paused. Frank. Ranch, she said slowly. There is no recorded amendment for Rule 8C in our registry. Under ORS 94-590. Eloping. Covenant amendments altering property rights must be approved by 75% of lot owners and recorded with the county clerk. Rule 8C was never recorded with the county. It does not exist in public land records. Discovering that Rule 8C was legally fictitious was a major breakthrough, but it raised a deeper question. Why was Karen Vance pushing so hard? In my experience, when people in authority act irrationally, it is rarely about aesthetics. It is almost always about money. I sat back down at the courthouse computer terminal and opened the Oregon Secretary of State Corporate Registry portal. I searched for Pine Creek Estates HOA. When Helen pulled the corporate detail page, we uncovered a shocking financial secret. In November 2021, Karen Vance created a private limited liability company named Cascade Water Management LLC, registered directly to her home address at Lot 1. 1 month later, she signed an exclusive vendor contract between the HOA and her private company, transferring $15,000 in HOA reserve funds to her company under the guise of lake maintenance fees, which she wasn't trying to open my lake gate to help her neighbors. She wanted access to my deep water boat ramp so her private storage company could launch commercial pontoon boats and charge residents $300 a month for private lake tours. My causeway was the missing link in her secret, while her $60,000 a year commercial business scheme. I paid Helen $45 for certified, stamped copies of every single document, placed them into my vinyl master binder, and walked out of the courthouse. On Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock, I drove to Lot 34 in Pine Creek Estates, a quiet ranch-style house owned by Arthur Pendleton. Arthur was a 71-year-old retired senior ERS forensic auditor who had served as elected HOA treasurer for 4 years before resigning suddenly 7 months ago. We sat in Arthur's study with 2 mugs of black coffee. I laid out the certified corporate filings for Cascade Water Management LLC and the 1998 municipal indemnity bond. Arthur pulled off his reading glasses and shook his head. Frank, Arthur revealed, when I resigned as treasurer last March, I told the neighborhood it was for personal reasons. The truth is, like Karen took total control of our operating bank accounts in late 2021. She transferred our operating accounts to a commercial portal in Portland, removed my name as signatory on the checkbook, and substituted her private management company as the administrative authority. Arthur opened a filing cabinet and pulled out a blue ledger book. Look at these entries, Arthur pointed out. Every time a resident paid a lake dock fee or a parking penalty, the funds were routed into an account labeled Special Utility Escrow, an account controlled exclusively by Karen Vance. Did the board ever vote on Rule 8C or the legal assessment? I asked. Never, Arthur declared firmly. Karen drafted Rule 8C on her home laptop, emailed it to the board without calling a meeting, and printed it in the handbook. 2 board members explicitly objected in writing, but she ignored them and claimed unanimous approval. Will you sign a sworn affidavit confirming that for court? I asked. Arthur looked at the Secretary of State filings showing Karen's secret commercial kickbacks, his jaw tightening with moral indignation. Frank, Arthur said, I spent 35 years auditing federal tax fraud. I will not let a corporate bully use fake board votes and illegal kickbacks to steal from my neighbors and harass an honest man on his own land. I'll sign whatever affidavit your attorney needs. By Wednesday evening, I sat at my dining room table surrounded by certified records, corporate registry filings, and Arthur's sworn affidavit. I had built an unassailable paper trail. When tomorrow night, at the clubhouse, Karen Vance was going to face the complete, undeniable truth. By Wednesday evening, Karen launched her final counterattack against the neighborhood. Homeowners received an emergency email alert titled Critical Community Security Alert. The notice claimed I was illegally blocking water access and forcing emergency legal expenditures. Karen scheduled a special meeting for Thursday evening to vote on an emergency special legal assessment of $600 per household, $72,000 total to sue Parcel 18 in circuit court. On Thursday morning, neighbors Dale Miller and his wife Sarah drove to my fence line, holding Karen's email notice. "Frank," Dale asked, "is this gate really worth forcing families to pay $600 in emergency legal fees?" "Dale," I asked, "did Karen Vance show you the 1998 deed covenant before asking for $600? You will come to the clubhouse tonight. Read the certified records I project. You won't owe $600. And Pine Creek will have a new president." I spent Thursday afternoon organizing my master evidence file into a black vinyl binder. Section A, Title Jurisdiction. 1974 Deed Book 74. Page 118. 1998 Addendum Book 98. Page 412. Survey 1998-142. Section B, Invalidity of Rule 8C. Unrecorded Rule 8C. Clerk's certificate confirming no amendments. Affidavit confirming no board vote. Section C, Kickback Scheme. Registry for Cascade Water Management C. Vendor contract with HOA. Ledger showing $15,000 in secret transfers. Section D, Unlawful Enforcement. Camera photos capturing lock cutting. Photos of orange paint. Incident report classifying causeway as private. Section E, Bond violations. Covenant triggering $480,000 clawback. Analysis of ORs 164.35 and 94.67. I printed 3 copies of the master binder and stamped the covers. I met Portland attorney Sarah Jenkins, who spent 40 minutes reading my binder in silence. "Mr. Sterling." "Well," Sarah said. Karen Vance walked her entire HOA directly into a $480,000 financial trap. Thursday evening arrived at the clubhouse, with all 120 households present. Seated behind the table sat Karen Vance, attorney Harold Blake, and 3 uneasy board members. I arrived at 6:55 p.m. in my gray suit with Martha, the attorney Sarah Jenkins, and Arthur Pendleton, while carrying my master binder. We took seats near a portable projector and screen I had requested in writing under parliamentary rules. Karen tapped her microphone, silencing the room. 1. "Good evening, neighbors," as Karen began. "We must vote on Item 1, Emergency Legal Assessment Approval regarding Parcel 18. Mr. Blake spoke, claiming the $600 assessment was vital to fund legal action in circuit court. A homeowner shouted, "Why should we pay $600 for a gate dispute?" Karen smiled triumphantly and raised her wooden gavel. "If there is no further discussion, we will proceed directly to the vote." "Madam President," a quiet voice interrupted. I stood up. Picking up my master exhibit binder. Under Section 6. I said, affected parties have the statutory right to present evidence before a vote. Karen's gavel hovered above the block. Mr. Sterling, you will have 2 minutes during open public comment. While Sarah Jenkins stood up. Madam President, denying Mr. was Sterling his right to present public records before voting on a $72,000 assessment constitutes a procedural violation. The room went dead silent. Harold Blake whispered in Karen's ear. Karen lowered her gavel. Mr. Wells, you have 10 minutes. I walked up to the stage, connected my laptop to the projector, and opened my presentation. A bright white beam cast a crisp 10-foot image onto the projection screen. Good evening. Wow, neighbors, I said. My name is Frank Sterling. My family has owned tax parcel 18 at Cedar Lake for 49 years. Before you vote on taking $600 out of your bank accounts, I want to show you what those legal fees are buying. I pressed the remote clicker. The screen lit up with a certified copy of the 1974 deed for tax parcel 18. This 1974 deed shows my father purchased tax parcel 18 as an independent parcel. I clicked to the next slide, displaying the 1998 exclusionary addendum recorded in Book 98, page 412. Page 14 states that parcel 18, Wetchett's Causeway, Wade Gate, and boat launch are excluded from HOA covenants. Gasps echoed through the hall. Ramley, in short, I said, the Pine Creek HOA has zero legal jurisdiction over my causeway or boat ramp. Karen slammed her hand onto the table. Rule 8C was passed unanimously in June to supersede all prior exemptions. Let's examine how Rule 8C came to exist, I said, calmly. Eli clicked the remote, displaying a Clackamas County Clerk certificate. Under ORS 94-590, amendments altering property rights must be approved by 75% of owners. This document certifies Rule 8C was never recorded. While Dale Miller stood up. Rule 8C was never recorded? It gets worse. Dale, I said. I clicked the remote, projecting Arthur Pendleton's sworn affidavit. Arthur Pendleton certifies that no board meeting was called and no vote occurred. Rule 8C was drafted by Karen Vance without a vote. Karen's face turned completely white. And now, I continued, let me show you why a worker arrived at my gate with bolt cutters. I clicked the remote, playing the 1080p trail camera video. The audience watched as Karen stood beside my gate while a worker cut my brass padlock. They listened as Karen's recorded voice said, "Set the code to 4920 so all homeowners can access the lake ramp starting today." I paused the video with Karen's face frozen on the screen. When Karen cut my lock, she activated Section 6 of the 1998 Indemnity Bond Covenant. I highlighted Section 6 in yellow. Under Section 6, attempting to claim Parcel 18 revokes fire access. It triggers a $480,000 bond clawback against your reserve fund and condemns your communal dock. A board member stood up while shouting into his microphone. $480,000? You triggered a $480,000 bond clawback against our reserve fund without telling the board? Karen grabbed her microphone, her voice cracking. I have executive authority. There was no emergency. Karen, I said. My causeway was closed for 49 years. But there was one thing that was urgent. Your private commercial pontoon business. I clicked to the Secretary of State filing for Cascade Water Management LC. In November 2021, Karen Vance incorporated Cascade Water Management CS and transferred $15,000 in HOA funds to her private business using my causeway. The room exploded into absolute fury. Homeowners leapt to their feet, demanding Karen's immediate resignation. Well, Dale Miller yelled, $15,000 of our dues for a private boat business? Karen turned frantically to Harold Blake. Harold, 1. Do something. Harold Blake stood up. He slowly closed his leather briefcase. Clicked, the brass latches shut. And picked up his coat. Mema says, Vance, Blake said, you concealed a corporate self-dealing scheme. Wang, Sterling. Cross Associates withdraws as counsel effective immediately. Harold Blake walked down the center aisle and exited the clubhouse, leaving Karen Vance standing completely alone behind the table, with the attorney gone. Vice President Dave Miller took control of the meeting. Neighbors, you'll sit down. As Vice President, Dave declared, I entertain immediate floor motions. Do I hear a motion regarding the proposed $600 special assessment? Dale Miller stood up immediately. I move that the $600 special assessment be rejected permanently, and all legal bills charged directly to Karen Vance's personal account. Will second. Did it? Shouted 50 voices across the hall. All those in favor, Dave called out. 120 hands shot into the air. Motion passes unanimously, 120-0. Dave recorded. Next, Dave continued. I call for a motion regarding a vote of no confidence and immediate removal of Karen Vance as board president. Arthur Pendleton stood up. We move Karen Vance be removed from the board immediately. Her bank access revoked tonight, and a forensic audit initiated. Rondon seconded, shouted the entire room. All those in favor of immediate removal? Wandier, Dave called out. Lie again. 120 hands went up. Not a single person voted no. Motion passes 120-0. Dave announced, striking the gavel. Karen Vance is removed from office immediately. The hall erupted in applause. Karen Vance grabbed her handbag and ran down the exit stairs into the dark parking lot outside. Dave Miller turned to face me. Frank. Juan, Dave said. On behalf of this entire community, I apologize. Your family built this causeway, and we let a bully harass you on your own land because we didn't check the paperwork. Thank you for bringing the truth to light. I gave Dave a quiet nod of genuine appreciation. Thank you. Why, Dave, I said. Just make sure the orange spray paint gets washed off my boat ramp. The fallout unfolded over the next 90 days. First came the expungement of all actions against Parcel 18. On Monday, the new HOA board met with an attorney. The board passed Resolution 2023-02, executing 4 actions. The expungement of all fines against Parcel 18. The recording of a deed clarification notice under Book 74. Page 118. Revocation of Rule 8C. Reimbursement of $3,800 in legal expenses. While second came property cleanup. On Tuesday, contractors pressure washed the orange paint from my boat ramp, installed a new brass master lock on my gate, and returned the key with a letter of apology. Third came accountability. Arthur Pendleton audited 3 years of HOA accounts, revealing Karen misallocated $11,200 of HOA funds for private legal consults and surveillance equipment. Faced with the audit report and threat of a lawsuit under ORS 65357, Karen Vance signed a settlement agreement requiring $26,200 in restitution to the reserve account, $6,000 in audit penalties, and a covenant relinquishing future board rights. Furthermore, the board forwarded the complete master exhibit binder to the Oregon Department of Justice Consumer Protection Division and the Clackamas County District Attorney's Office. 60 days later, a for sale sign appeared at Lot 1. Karen Vance could no longer walk down Pine Creek Way without neighbors turning away. Her authority was gone. Her company dissolved, and her kickbacks clawed back. By mid-December, a moving van loaded her furniture and drove away. Ripley, 2 weeks later, a quiet young family bought the waterfront home. Pine Creek Estates underwent a healthy transformation. Under Arthur Pendleton as treasurer, HO quarterly dues were reduced by 18% due to the elimination of bloated legal fees. The dock was dredged, while street lights upgraded, and the newsletter returned to announcing barbecues and fishing derbies. Nobody ever again walked down a driveway with a clipboard. At the end of the causeway hung my father's gate. The brass lock glinted in the winter sun. The causeway was secure. On a Saturday morning in January, I stood on my porch with coffee. I walked down the gravel road to my gate and ran my hand along the cool iron rail. I remembered what my father told me 49 years ago. A man's boundary isn't defined by what his neighbors think he owns. It's defined by what's stamped into the county record book. As long as your deed is clean and your posts are plumb, nobody on God's green earth can tell you where your property ends. My father had been right. The boundary lines had been tested. The paper trail audited, when the truth had stood its ground. Later that afternoon, my neighbor Dale Miller walked down the causeway, holding 2 fishing rods. Afternoon, Frank. Elon, Dale said, smiling. Got time to show me where the deep trout holes are near the island? Always got time for a neighbor, Dale, I said. I unlocked the heavy brass master lock, swung the iron gate open, and we spent the afternoon fishing on the calm water of Cedar Lake. When I walked back up to my cabin at 5 o'clock, the evening sun was setting behind the timber ridge, casting a golden light across Cedar Lake. The gate stood firm and plumb. There were no flatbed tow trucks, no aerosol paint cans, and no corporate bullies with clipboards. There was only deep, quiet peace, clear paper, and a proud home built on square footings and recorded county deeds. When an arrogant manager uses fake authority or unrecorded rules to claim your private property, you don't need to shout or break the law. You only need to know your boundary, gather certified records, and stand your ground. Because when an arrogant bully crosses your private property line without the law behind them, the truth always fights back with quiet, while unyielding power. Have you ever had an overbearing HOA president or aggressive neighbor try to claim property that wasn't theirs? Please share your personal story in the comments section below. Your experience matters to us.